Hi. In our last video, we introduced spiritual disciplines. In particular, we talked about how Paul uses the metaphor of athletics, specifically the athletic games, Olympic level games, to describe how a person should, must order their life around the pursuit of Jesus. And the metaphor he uses is the way an athlete trains, an Olympic level athlete, not just a weekend warrior athlete, but a real live, honest to goodness pro athlete. Their whole lives are ordered around this one pursuit of becoming better, becoming more than they were in their particular discipline or their particular pursuit. Our pursuit is Christification, the process of becoming like Jesus. Now, I want to say here that spiritual disciplines don't make you more like Jesus. Spiritual disciplines, because there are Buddhist monks who practice solitude and silence, and they're becoming more like Jesus. The quiet is helping them, but it's not Christifying them. Here's what I mean. A spiritual discipline, a Christian spiritual discipline, is a practice that opens up particular pieces of your personality to the sunlight of Christ's beauty and goodness. So the radiation from Jesus can reorder your spiritual DNA in that particular part of your personality, of your humanness. It's making Christ's humanness affect your humanness in all the different ways that you're a human being. It's much more than just hear and try harder. It's much more than that. It's much more complex than that, but not complicated. Okay? Here's a discipline that my wife and I pursue together. We have a date night. Tonight, actually, will be date night. I'm looking forward to it. We'll go to a restaurant and we'll eat things that she didn't cook and that I didn't cook because I don't really cook. And we will walk in a place that we both like. We might get a dessert someplace that we both like. We will talk. If we're fighting like in a given week, or if we're both like exhausted, that particular practice probably won't draw us closer together. But the practice is in place so that we have an opportunity to connect deeply. These disciplines are things you put in place. They're practices, things that you actually do, that give you and Jesus an opportunity to connect deeply in different ways, not just in one way, but in different ways, so different parts of your personality, to engage different parts of who Jesus is. One of the things we saw last video in Paul's literature was the way that Paul helps us think about transformation, not just as a big weird cloud of I don't know how to do this, but what he says what you're talking about is the transformation of your mind and your bodily habits, not some unknowable, weird, or super complex mystical pursuit, although it is mystical in a particular sense of that word. You're transforming your mind and you're transforming your body. More accurately, you're being transformed in your mind and you're being transformed in your bodily habits. So that's what we have here. We saw that in Colossians and Philippians. You also see it in Ephesians, and you see its inverse in Ephesians, where Paul says that lost people are taken captive by the devil through the lusts of their flesh, their bodies, and the lusts of their minds. These are the two places that either Satan or Jesus gets his hands in you to transform or control the way that you comport yourself. Now, there's more to talk about here than just mind and body. These two words, abstain and engage, come from a guy named Dallas Willard. Is everything that Dallas Willard said accurate and good? Probably not. Is his discussion of this helpful? Super. Is everything that Albert Einstein said right and good? Nope. Has he been helpful to particle and quantum physics? Yeah. So someone doesn't have to be right about everything to be helpful. Dallas Willard was really helpful about this. So he talks about spiritual disciplines in two categories: disciplines of abstention, of abstinence, and disciplines of engagement. Before we get there, let me take some of the mystery out of this. If I want to learn to play the guitar, then I'm going to do certain exercises with the guitar. I'm not going to sit down and instantaneously play something really beautiful. I'm going to sit down and do a drill. That drill is a discipline. If I want to learn the skill of raw physical strength, and I want to be able to pick up a boulder in my backyard that I need to move. It's practical. I need to move it. Then I might do a whole bunch of kettlebell swings and also deadlifts, and also increasing difficulty of deadlifts, and maybe deadlifts from different heights, deadlifts with different diameter bars, and then maybe some odd object lifts like lifting kegs or lifting tree trunks. I will do these practices. In none of those practices am I actually picking up that rock in my backyard. I am doing things that are preparing my whole system to be able to pick up that rock in my backyard. A discipline is something that you do now that allows you to become the kind of person who can do something else later that you can't currently do now. You don't need a discipline to be able to do something you already know how to do and already have the strength and ability to do. You need a discipline to help you become the kind of person who can do a thing that you can't yet do. Okay? This is how we grow. So disciplines of abstinence, of abstaining, are disciplines where we remove something from us. We don't do something. We don't eat. That's fasting. That's an example. And that's an example of something that you don't do with your body. So let's put that on the board. An abstinence discipline with your body would be fasting. But a congruent engagement discipline with your body might be celebration or feasting. Keeping Christmas as a practice where we feast is a really valuable practice. Every Friday, my family has a family Sabbath meal, and it's a practice, it's a discipline. And we eat. Man, we eat. And the kids get dessert, and they get juice instead of water, and that's a big deal for us. We don't really like sugar. And we enjoy it with all of our might, and in it, we enjoy being together, and with the other people who come to that. We enjoy each other with all of our might, and we enjoy the gift of these things as gifts from God, not as little gods themselves, and not as things we're addicted to. You see the difference between gluttony and feasting? Do you see the difference? There's a difference between fasting and self-abuse or anorexia or bulimia. Fasting, I remove food from the options so that I can learn that my body is not my master. I can also learn that my strength doesn't really come from what I put in my mouth. My strength comes from the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord is our strength. You can say that, or you can know it in your bones by having been strengthened by the joy of the Lord when you weren't putting food in your face. Okay? This is how this works. Engagement disciplines are things you add or do. Abstinence disciplines are things you remove or don't do. An abstinence discipline for the mind might be silence. And solitude. Silence here, I don't mean not talking. What I mean is not putting the earbuds in. Not constantly introducing a stream of noise so that what's actually inside you has to bubble to the surface and you got to face the monsters that have grown in there. And eventually, after all that noise starts to loosen up and spread out and kind of get out of right here in your face, you start to be able to see Jesus through the crowd of all the psychoses and neuroses that you've allowed to grow inside your soul. You start to pick him out in the noise of that. As all these voices keep screaming for your attention, you start to hear the still small one, and you become the kind of person who can hear. So a discipline, an engagement discipline for the mind might be meditation, where you take a particular passage of Scripture and you read it as you breathe in, you read it silently as you breathe in, you read it out loud as you breathe out, and you consider it. You hold it before your attention, sustained attention on one thing. Can you imagine that? Sustained attention on just one thing? You might actually have an original thought. Study, right? Bible study. This is a common discipline that most traditions espouse. And it's wonderful and good and necessary. It's not alone. It's not the only thing you do. But it's something you can do. And it's something that you can do to expand your view of how God works in the world and to anchor your mind in that story, to anchor your mind in the beauty of Jesus, to anchor your mind's ability to draw nutrition from God instead of the high-calorie, low-nutrition entertainment that's constantly available to you on every device that you possess, and which you're almost certainly looking at. Probably right now you have another window open while you're looking at this video, right? We can become the kind of people who can sustain attention on Jesus and be changed by him. And we can become the kind of people whose bodily habits become altered. Here's another bodily abstention or engagement. So something that you can do with your body is depriving yourself of a little bit of sleep. I don't suggest doing this as a lifestyle. I suggest having a lifestyle of discipline that engages this. Deadlifting every day is very bad for you. Deadlifting once a week, once every other week, once you get really strong, is good for you, really good for you. One of the best things you can actually do to avoid aging fast, bone breakage, hormone mess. There's tons of wonderful things that come from deadlifting occasionally. Watching or not sleeping. Staying up for the night, praying. Staying up for part of the night. Waking up at 1 in the morning and praying until 2 and then going back to sleep. Making your body not get something it needs so that you can get something you really, really need teaches your body that it's not the boss. And it makes your body a servant to this pursuit. Instead of your body being the primary obstacle, your body and its appetites being the primary obstacle to your pursuit of Jesus, it can become your primary asset. Another engagement discipline with your body could be service. Service as a discipline is where you do things for other people and you don't let them know. You make sure that they don't know. And you never talk about it, and you don't give yourself pats on the back for it. As you're serving people, you are teaching your whole personality that you are not the center of the universe and that others are also valuable. What that does for you is it makes your personality a space, an environment in which loving your neighbor as yourself becomes more natural. Instead of a challenge you must aspire to, it becomes the way that you sort of live as a human being. It becomes the way you do human. Imagine obedience to Jesus being the way that you do human. Right? Okay, so for review. Spiritual disciplines can be thought about in terms of 4 movement patterns. Things you do with your mind and body, and specifically things that you don't do, or things that you abstain from, and things that you engage. Ways that you can abstain with your mind include silence and solitude. Ways that you can engage with your mind include meditation and study, and there's lots more disciplines than this. Lots more. But this is a short list for you. Kind of a primer. Ways that you can abstain with your body include fasting and watching, and ways that you can engage with your body include celebration and service. Will these things change you? No. Will these things create environments, these practices done over time? Will they create environments where pieces of your personality can get drawn into resonance with Jesus' personality? Yes. Yes, it will work. And that's very good news for those of you who actually want to change and don't just want to keep being sorry. All right. The grace and peace of Jesus be yours increasingly as you learn how to consume grace and live in peace through the practices of Jesus and his very best students.